Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive. Today we're tackling something pretty fascinating. It's called the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference.
Yeah, this is one of those events that really gets the healthcare world buzzing.
So I'm guessing most of our listeners haven't even heard of this conference. It's not exactly a household name.
True, but even if you've never heard of it, trust me, it probably impacts your life in more ways than you realize.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. Set the stage for us. What is this JP Morgan Healthcare Conference all about?
Well, imagine this San Francisco every January. Thousands of people from all corners of the healthcare world descend on the city.
Okay, I can picture it. Kind of like a giant healthcare convention.
Exactly. But it's not just any convention. We're talking CEOs of massive pharma companies, founders of tiny biotech startups, investors with billions to spend, researchers on the cutting edge of medicine.
Wow, so it's like the who's who of healthcare.
Exactly. And they're all there to talk about the future of healthcare, strike deals, and basically set the agenda for the entire industry.
No, that's what I call a power meeting.
It is, and it's become kind of a bellwether for the entire healthcare industry, where the trends are spotted, where the deals are made, and where the future is at least partially shaped.
Okay, so we've got this massive gathering of healthcare movers and shakers. But what's the big deal? Why should our listeners care about what goes on at this conference?
Because what happens here has ripple effects that reach all of us. The innovations that are showcased, the investments that are made, they all influence what kinds of treatments and technologies will be available to us in the future.
You're saying that this conference actually impacts the kind of healthcare we receive.
Absolutely. This is where the future of healthcare is being discussed, debated, and more importantly, funded.
Okay, I'm starting to understand why this is such a big deal. But before we dive into the specifics, let's take a step back. How did this conference become such a massive, globally recognized event?
Well, believe it or not, it started out pretty small. Back in the 1980s, it was just a small gathering of biotech companies.
So like a casual get-together.
Pretty much. It was hosted by a firm called Hambrecht and Quist. But then, in the early 2000s, JP Morgan acquired it and things really took off.
So that's when it went from a backyard barbecue to a Super Bowl party.
Exactly. Suddenly, it was the place to be seen in the world of healthcare investing. And it's only grown bigger and more influential every year since.
So you've got all these people flocking to San Francisco every year, from the biggest names in healthcare to these tiny startups. Paint us a picture. Who are the players involved?
Well, you've got the giants, the companies everyone's heard of, like Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Novartis. They're there to flex their muscles, showcase their latest innovations, and reassure investors that they're still at the forefront of the industry.
Okay, so those are the big fish. What about the smaller players?
Oh, there are tons of them. You'll find hundreds of smaller biotech companies, medical device companies, digital health platforms, you name it. They're all vying for attention, hoping to attract investors and become the next big thing in healthcare.
And what about the investors? What brings them to the table? What are they looking for?
It's a real mix of investors, all with different goals and appetites for risk. You've got the venture capitalists, who are known for backing early-stage companies with high growth potential, but also a high risk of failure.
The ones willing to take a gamble on something truly groundbreaking.
Exactly. And then you've got the institutional investors, the big players like pension funds, mutual funds, insurance companies. They're looking for more established companies with a proven track record.
So it's not just about the money. It's about connecting the right people with the right ideas.
Absolutely. This conference is a massive networking event where everyone's looking to make deals, forge partnerships, and basically shape the future of healthcare together. It's an intense few days, to say the least.
It sounds like it. So it's not just presentations. It's about the energy, the connections, the potential for massive deals. It's where the future of healthcare is being discussed.
It really is, and those deals can be massive.
Oh, I bet. Give us an example of a big deal that went down at the conference.
Remember a few years back when Bristol Myers Squibb acquired Celgene for a staggering $74 billion?
Whoa, $74 billion. Okay, now I'm really starting to grasp the scale of this thing.
It's not called the Super Bowl of healthcare investing for nothing.
All right, so this is much more than just a conference.
Think about it. Those kinds of deals can reshape the entire industry. They influence which research gets funded, what drugs get developed, and ultimately what treatments are available to all of us.
Wow, so it really does come full circle back to the patients.
That's right. And that's why this conference is so significant, even if most people have never heard of it.
So we've established that This conference is a pretty big deal with these massive deals that impact the entire healthcare industry.
It really is.
But it's not just about the money, right?
No, not at all. It also sets the agenda for what everyone will be talking about for the rest of the year.
Oh, that makes sense. So what are some of the hot topics that dominated the conversations at recent conferences?
Well, drug innovation is always front and center. Every year there's a lot of buzz around new breakthroughs in areas like cancer, Alzheimer's,
Oh,
diabetes.
yeah, of course, the big ones that affect so many lives.
Exactly. And those are the ones that really capture everyone's attention.
Makes sense. But I'm also curious about the role of technology. It feels like healthcare is being transformed by all these advancements in AI and digital platforms. Does that play a big role at the conference?
Absolutely. Healthcare technology is another huge area of focus. We're talking about AI, machine learning, digital health platforms. All of those are really changing the game.
So it's not just about developing new drugs.
Nope. It's also about finding new ways to deliver healthcare to make it more personalized, more efficient, and more accessible.
So things like telehealth.
Exactly. Telehealth is a big one. But also using AI to speed up drug discovery, personalize treatment plans, even diagnose diseases earlier.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
It really feels like we're on the cusp of a whole new era of healthcare.
it does, doesn't it?
So we've got groundbreaking drug discoveries and tech that's pushing the boundaries.
Mm.
What else? What are some of the other trends that are making waves at the conference?
Well, one area that's been creating a lot of buzz is gene editing.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I've heard about that. It has the potential to cure genetic diseases, right?
It does. It's pretty incredible stuff. We're talking about rewriting the code of life itself.
Yeah, and that obviously raises some big ethical questions, too.
Definitely. But there's no doubt that gene editing is going to have a profound impact on healthcare in the years to come.
It's mind-blowing to think about.
Yep.
And it sounds like something straight out of a science fiction movie.
You're telling me. And speaking of science fiction, another trend that's closely tied to gene editing is the use of AI in healthcare.
Oh, right. Everyone's talking about AI these days.
And for good reason. But I'm not talking about robots replacing doctors or anything like that.
Okay, good, because I was a little worried for a second there.
It's more about using AI to augment human intelligence. Giving doctors and researchers the tools they need to make better, faster, and more informed decisions.
That makes a lot more sense.
For example, AI is already being used to analyze massive amounts of data to identify patterns that humans might miss.
Oh, yeah, I see.
And that can lead to earlier diagnoses, more effective treatments, and even the development of new drugs.
So AI is really changing the game across the board.
It really is. And another exciting area is personalized medicine.
Ah, yes. Personalized medicine. That's another one that's been getting a lot of attention lately.
It's all about tailoring treatments to the individual patient.
Mhm.
Instead of a one-size-fits-all approach, we can use AI to analyze a patient's genetic makeup, their medical history, their lifestyle factors.
And create a treatment plan that's specifically designed for them.
Exactly. It's about moving away from the idea that everyone should get the same treatment for the same condition.
Makes sense. We're all unique individuals after all.
Exactly. And this is where all those digital health platforms come in.
All right, the wearables, the smartphone apps, telemedicine.
All of those are generating tons of data that can be used to create a more holistic view of a patient's health.
And AI can help make sense of all that data.
Exactly. It's a perfect match. And it's already leading to some really incredible breakthroughs in personalized medicine.
Wow, this is all so fascinating. We've got gene editing, AI personalized medicine. It really feels like we're on the verge of a revolution in healthcare.
I think you're right.
But before we get too carried away with all the excitement, we should probably talk about the elephant in the room, the financial side of things.
Right, because all of this amazing innovation doesn't come cheap.
Exactly. So how does the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference fit into the equation?
Well, it plays a huge role. Essentially, it sets the stage for where the money will flow in the coming year.
Okay, so are investors just throwing money at any shiny new technology that comes along?
Not quite. Investors are savvy. They're looking for clues about where the next big breakthroughs are going to happen. They want to get in early on the companies that are going to disrupt the industry and change the game.
So it's like a giant marketplace of ideas
Mhm.
where investors are trying to spot the diamonds in the rough.
That's a great analogy.
But the stakes must be incredibly high.
Oh, they are. If a company can make a strong showing at the conference, they could walk away with millions, even billions in funding.
And that funding determines what research gets done, what drugs get developed, and ultimately what treatments become available to patients.
Exactly. So you can see why the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference is so important. It's where the worlds of science, finance, and healthcare collide. It's where the future of healthcare is being shaped one investment at a time.
And it's not just about the big players either, right?
Right. A lot of smaller companies get their start at this conference. They might only have a promising idea and a few passionate researchers.
And if they can impress the right investors.
They could get the funding they need to turn that idea into a reality.
We've talked a lot about the cutting-edge science and the big money deals, but I'm curious about the bigger picture.
Right.
How do macroeconomic factors like interest rates or inflation play into all of this?
That's a great question, and it's something that a lot of people overlook.
So how do things like interest rates and inflation affect the healthcare industry and the decisions being made at this conference?
Well, when interest rates are high, as they've been recently, it becomes more expensive for companies to borrow money.
So they might have less money to invest in research and development or to acquire other companies,
Exactly. And that can have a ripple effect across the entire industry.
slowing down innovation.
Exactly. And inflation adds another layer of complexity. When the cost of everything is going up, healthcare budgets get squeezed even tighter.
So drug prices might go up, insurance premiums could rise.
It's all connected.
Right.
And ultimately, it can affect access to care for patients.
So it's not all sunshine and roses.
Not quite. There are a lot of challenges facing the healthcare industry.
But the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference is where all of these forces come together.
Right. It's where the optimism of scientific discovery meets the pragmatism of the marketplace.
So we've talked about all this excitement, these groundbreaking innovations, these billion-dollar deals, but it can't all be positive, right? There must be some downsides to all of this.
Yeah, you're right. It's not all sunshine and roses. Like anything that attracts this much attention and this much money, the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference has its share of critics.
Okay, so let's hear it. What are some of the concerns people have raised about this conference?
Well, one of the biggest criticisms is that it's become a bit too much of a spectacle.
Too much hype?
Yeah, exactly. There are so many people there, and everyone's vying for attention. It can be hard to separate the truly groundbreaking stuff from all the noise.
So it's become a victim of its own success in a way.
I think that's a fair assessment. And some people argue that all this hype can lead to inflated expectations and unrealistic valuations.
Especially for those early-stage companies.
Right. There's a danger that the conference becomes more about generating buzz than about showcasing genuine scientific progress.
I can see how that could be a problem. It's like anything too much hype can create a bubble that eventually bursts.
Exactly. And that can have real consequences for investors and for the industry as a whole.
So, are there concerns that patient care might get lost in all the excitement and the pursuit of profits?
That's another valid concern. It's important to remember that healthcare is a business. And the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference is ultimately about attracting investment and generating returns.
But the patients are the ones who matter most.
Of course.
Yes.
And that's why it's so important to make sure that patient needs and ethical considerations aren't overshadowed by the pursuit of profits.
It's a balancing act.
Definitely. And it's a conversation that we need to keep having. We need to be critical of the influence of money in healthcare, while also recognizing that investment is essential to drive innovation and make these new treatments a reality.
Sounds like a tough needle to thread.
It is. But it's a challenge that we need to face head on.
So we've talked about the excitement, the breakthroughs, the money, and the challenges. What are you personally most excited about when you think about the future of healthcare?
Honestly, what excites me the most is the incredible pace of scientific discovery. I mean, we're living in a time of unprecedented breakthroughs in fields like genomics, gene editing, AI personalized medicine. All these advancements have the potential to completely transform the way we diagnose, treat, and even prevent diseases.
It really does feel like we're on the verge of a revolution in healthcare.
It truly is. And I think the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference, despite its flaws, plays a role in accelerating that progress.
In what way?
Well, it's a platform where brilliant minds and bold ideas converge, and it's where the investments that fuel the next generation of medical breakthroughs are made. It might not be perfect, but it's definitely pushing the industry forward.
Well said. I think that's a great place to wrap up our deep dive into the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the history and the players to the hottest trends and those massive billion-dollar deals. And of course, we talked about the potential impact this all has on the future of healthcare.
It's a reminder that while most people have never even heard of this conference, it's playing a significant role in shaping the future of health and medicine. And that's something we should all be paying attention to.
Absolutely. So, to our listeners out there, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. It's a complex and fascinating event, and we've only scratched the surface. But hopefully, we've given you a glimpse into this world and sparked your curiosity to learn more. Keep exploring these topics, stay curious, and remember that you're not just a passive observer. You have the power to be an active participant in shaping the future of your own health and well-being. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.